All right.
We're rolling.
Kick it.
Yes.
Welcome to Hardheaded Podcast, the only podcast that is practical, realistic, with three knuckleheads as the hosts. I am Chet Sears. To my right, we've got Matt Amos, and to my left, we have Troy Three-Shot Trussell, and we've got a very, very special guest in studio with us today.
Yes, we do.
It sounds like you just called him a knucklehead.
No, hosted by three knuckleheads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening. I never did.
He's a guest, not a host.
Well, I mean, he
Are you trying to stir something up
he
already?
gave us the kick it.
Yeah, he did.
So, I mean, technically.
He did. That was perfect. So, yeah, our special guest today is a man who has been through many industries in life. And on this podcast, we talk about business a lot. So he's been in the insurance industry. Not just insurance, though. You used to write insurance for like sawmills and places that people couldn't typically get insured.
Woodworking plants, anything that was rated as a woodworker is something that the stock companies like Aetna, Travelers, any of those other companies would not insure because they were going to burn up. So we wrote them because we knew how to underwrite them. It was actually through a company out of Kansas City, Missouri, Atlas Mutual Insurance Company, and I was with them for 9.5 years, and we did very well. Inspected the plants, gave them our list of recommendations, and it was a good business. We did good.
So very specific insurance. And then from insurance...
Oil and gas.
In the oil and gas industry, and that was a lot of fun. Had peaks and valleys, more valleys than peaks, however. So I decided to get into another business, anything that was pretty steady. So I looked at medical, anything medical, and I landed a job in a hospital as a director of human resources for a long-term acute care hospital, and then stayed in that for the next, 13 years. And that was a good business. I enjoyed that. So that's about where I've been in my industries.
And then, but the last company that before we get into this, we haven't even introduced you yet. We just talked about your background in industries.
Yeah, so the special guest today is Don Trussell, my dad. So, Dad, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you very much.
My father-in-law.
Yes.
Yes.
My sister's
husband's
father.
In-law.
In-law.
Yeah.
I get so confused on all that
Your
stuff.
nieces and nephews'
grandfather. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome to the show, Dad.
I think I follow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He paid for my wedding. We could put it like that, too.
Yeah, I remember that because I think I was a senior in college, and you had proposed, and my dad called me and said, "Hey, are you graduating this year?"
No, you are graduating this year.
Because your sister's getting married. Yes. I think it was like, unless you want to pay for another year yourself, you're going to graduate this year. I went, okay, I think I can do that.
That's funny.
So what years are we talking about on the insurance, and then the
insurance?
What year was that?
It was about 70 through 78, somewhere along there.
Okay, and then the medical, the HR for medical?
The insurance and then the oil and gas industry went from probably 80 to 90, 94, and then I got into the medical 95, 96, and stayed it until 2016.
Okay.
Now, oil and gas, you did land?
I did land work, but we had a company. We did a small exploration company. We drill wells, oil and gas wells, shallow wells in the northwest Louisiana area, and did quite well. We had one of the partners started out with H.L. Hunt. It was a friend of mine I knew from high school and college. He was a petroleum engineer. His name was, we call him Jamas, and his daddy was with H.L. Hunt, and his daddy went with Placid Oil Company, and he was with them for like 60, 70 years. So he knew the drilling business, and he had a shallow drilling rig working out of Shreveport. So we formed a company and did some shallow drilling when the price of oil went, oh gosh, as high as $50, which is not very high now.
Right.
But gas was good, and we drilled gas wells and oil wells. Shallow, we never drilled below 4,000 feet. But they knew the business, and they could read the logs, and the logs were plentiful. We could look at them. They were on file in Shreveport in the Conservation Department, and they could read them and look at them and tell about where to drill. And we put prospects together and got investors. And that's back when, I think, and I'm not a CPA and I'm not sure, if you invested in an oil and gas prospect and it didn't make a well, then you could write off the whole thing on your income tax. So people were willing to jump in and try it. And so it was easy to sell the prospects. And that was a lot of fun. So, but we did good. But again, the valleys got too deep. So I started looking for something else.
Yeah, and fun fact, Jamis, your buddy, was my 8th grade science teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I found out real quick that he knew my dad.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I was acting a clown in class and got called out pretty quick.
Which,
he's like, oh, Trussell.
that was the theme of his whole school age behavior, was getting called out for being a clown.
Yeah, and I got called out several times too because he was a clown.
Making Dad leave work to go school you up,
Yeah, a few times.
fix the problem.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of the things he got in trouble for was after work hours.
We don't have to go into all that, though.
I mean, you've already kind
We
of
don't
got
have
into
to.
it in previous episodes.
Yeah, I've alluded to that, and a lot of it was true, but
One of the things I look at it from a parenting perspective, there were times, and I don't know if you've ever said these words, but I think you've at least, the sentiment has been described that at some point as a parent, you didn't know if Troy was going to turn out. And you stuck with it. You were still pretty stern and still supportive. You didn't write him off, but it took a while for him to come back around. And now, I mean, he's got a family full of kids and spent a lot of time with them, and he's an upstanding citizen,
Yes.
if you will. But as a parent, what were some of those? I mean, you're looking back on it now, and I'm sure it was a lot when in the thick of it. You were probably pretty upset and didn't know if everything was going to work out.
Yeah, but it worked out okay. The people that we dealt with in the situations were good people, and they understood. Of course, they had kids too, same age as Troy, and they were all in it together. So, we worked through it as parents. We weren't in it alone. So we had a good group of parents and a good bunch of kids too. We never did anything, got in serious trouble, never did. So I was thankful for that. Praise the Lord. We didn't have anything that was really, really serious. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. No, the stories I tell my kids, it was very serious. Like, it was so bad. They're going to write movies about this.
your Uncle Troy was the worst kid. No, I appreciate you never giving up, Dad, because we've talked about it on the show here before that, a lot of places where people go awry is they don't have a good father figure in the home. And I was fortunate enough to have that. So helped me to get through where I am today.
Well, a good father figure and then a good community to back you up as well.
That's right.
It goes back to that saying, it takes a village,
Oh, yeah.
I think we need more of that today.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I really appreciate you for, you got me into duck hunting. Like I hadn't duck hunted before I married your daughter. And then, in fact, I remember you asking me questions about, I think I said something along the lines of I wouldn't even have a shotgun to go duck hunting with if I did go. I don't know what I'd use. I had some stuff I got from my grandparents, but it wasn't good for steel shot. So one of my first Christmas gifts as I was in the family was a Remington 870 from this man right here.
Yeah, and I got a Mossberg that same year.
Yep.
Yep.
The number one, was that the number one shotgun on your list
Yeah.
or number three?
No, I didn't.
Either
one.
way, it was on your list.
Yep.
Yeah,
The
they
old
were, they
870.
were both on our top 3 list. So
All three of us.
Yeah.
yeah.
So were you the one that told him to tell stories about how many ducks he shot? Like how good he is? Did you teach him to tell stories? Because that's all a part of hunting is telling the stories. And you have to-
Me or Troy?
You.
I take pictures.
Like
I take
Troy,
pictures.
we already know Troy. He's already said, "Hey, I'm 3-shot. If it's up there, I'm shooting." We haven't covered that story yet. I don't think either.
Not yet.
But you,
You meaning Chet.
Yeah.
I mean, the last one of the last podcasts, I remember we had Greg on, and he talked about you being a good storyteller, and I would agree.
That doesn't mean a liar. I mean,
Hey,
I could communicate very well in an engaging fashion. I take pictures, and I choose whether or not I'm going to show them, depending upon.
Photoshop.
Yeah. So, Dad, you taught Chet how to shoot ducks. You taught me how to shoot ducks and deer and hunt and fish and everything.
Well, wing shooting is just kind of depends on the person. If they're have a little activity that they've done before. If they're a little bit athletic, they can pick it up pretty quick. Like throwing a football, just put it out there in front of them and squeeze off, and they'll get the hang of it. So it's not a big deal. You just got to do it a lot before you get pretty good at it. They got to where they were pretty good. Sure did.
Yeah.
All about that hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Dad, what's your favorite thing to hunt, just in general?
Oh well, it's probably got to be ducks. I love that. Love duck hunting, and had a friend in Shreveport. We used to go regardless of when and what the weather was. We would go anytime. Vernon Hastings, and he lived and breathed duck hunting. He has a whole library on ducks, duck hunting, decoys, and everything like that. But that's all we look forward to was duck hunting. So that's got to be the most favorite.
Yeah.
And you did a lot of that
favorite, too.
on Caddo Lake, right?
Caddo Lake,
Yeah.
sure did.
Up in northwest Louisiana, right there on the Texas state line.
Yep, half in Texas and half in Louisiana. The lake, was a huge lake, comparable back then, but a lot of ducks used to come through there. Lots of ducks.
Yeah, and so for our Midwest folks, listeners, I mean, these are blinds that you drive the boat out to, and there was a drop-off blind out there too, where that's why we called it that, because you just got dropped off, and then the boat would go park it in another blind where it had a boat slip in it. So, yeah, sometimes you're getting dropped off in that drop-off blind, and the wind picks up, and the waves start rolling in. You're wondering if you're ever going to get picked back up out of that thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it used to get rough out there. We had to stay out one day. Got so rough we had to wait till dark till the wind died down, so we could come in. And it's a big lake, and it was dangerous.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never done anything like that here, but when I was in Missouri, they had, those early mornings, you'd have to wait for the draw, see if you got a spot drawn, and be there at 3 or 4 in the morning when they draw them, and then you get in your boat and ride out, and then, of course, they drop me off. They don't trust me with a boat, so they drop me off, and then they go park the boat, and then you can hear them sloshing in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Caddo Lake was something special because that was one of the first places in the world, I believe, that they had put a oil well in over water instead of just on land.
Right.
And what they ended up doing, and it was successful, so they found oil there. So they started putting oil wells right next to oil wells, and they did it all on these wooden pilings. And so they made a road on the water in between all the oil wells so the drilling barge could get between all the wells. And then when I guess technology came and whatever, they ended up doing away with most all of the wells that were mounted over the water. So if you could imagine a big body of water in a part where there isn't trees, but not being able to see the water because of all the platforms of oil wells, they're just everywhere. Well, they went in and they cut off all of the pilings just under the surface of the water. So the road is what you had to travel, but you looked out there and it was just all open water. So when the wind would come up, normally you just take a tack that would put you where your bow's going into the waves and they're not coming over the side, but you had to drive the road through all that stuff. So it could get, I got stuck out there in my bass boat in a thunderstorm, just because you couldn't. There's white capping over the side of your boat.
Yeah,
you're like, I'd point into that. No, if you point into that, you're going to go right in there and hit those stumps, hit those pilings under the surface.
Yeah.
which I had a friend do. Flying down there, he clipped one on a corner one time and ripped a hole. I don't know, it was about 6 inches wide and about 3 feet long. I got to the spot behind him, and we were in a tournament, and we were both fishing the same area, and he got there before I did because he had a boat that could go like 70 miles an hour. And so I pull in there a few minutes after he does. He's already fishing, and I was like, "Hey man, your bilge pump is going." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know." And I'm like, "Dude, it should not be pumping water. You just got here." And sure enough, he's like, "Well, I think I hit something out there," and he loaded back up and went back to the ramp. Done for the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Done for a while.
Yeah.
That's an expensive repair.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Dad, another question I wanted to ask you was you shared a photo with me a couple of days ago that you were standing there, and for the people watching on YouTube, I'll show the photo, but it was a photo of you and a guy probably 30 years ago, and y'all are holding up snakes.
1970.
Yeah.
October
It was
1970.
50 years ago for the math challenged.
Yeah, thank you. 50 years ago.
Uh-huh.
What snake were you holding up, and what snake was your buddy holding up, and what's the story behind all that?
Well, they were both, I think they were timber rattlers or canebrake rattlers. I think they're both by the same name. But my buddy there, his name was Tully, Tulley Hall, and his family owned Anderson Tully Lumber Company out of Memphis, Tennessee. And we hunted on the company's hunting club, which is about 30 miles north of Vicksburg, Mississippi. And like all hunting club members, you always go in there early to get ready, get the camp ready, and scout out for deer and look over everything. Well, he and I and another friend of his from the hunting club were in there that October, and I was squirrel hunting. I had a shotgun. And Tully, his name was Tully Hall, he had a .22, and our other friend had a shotgun. So we split up and went out through the woods, and all of a sudden we heard somebody yelling, yeah, just loud enough. And we immediately knew what it was. And we yelled back to make sure he was okay, and it was Tully. And then we heard his start shooting. He shot about 10 times with a .22 automatic. And we kept yelling to him and went over to where he was. He had killed the first snake. It was 5 feet 7 inches long and had 16 rattles.
Oh,
gosh.
It was a timber rattler. And then my buddy, the guy that was with me, his name was Peter, and he's an excited guy. And so Tully went on off somewhere, and Peter had this snake on the end of a stick, and he was going to go back to camp as fast as he could, walking through the woods. I said, "Peter, be careful. Watch where you're going. Where there's one, there's normally another one. Okay, I'll watch. And he was going through the woods, and of course I was behind him about 4 or 5 steps, and I was looking for snakes. And he kept going, and he stepped right next to the second one, and it was coiled up on the ground, not to strike, was just sitting there. And when he did that, I stopped and I yelled, and he took off. And he said, "What is it?" I said, "Come look at this thing." And he came back and he said, "Shoot it." So I shot it, and that was the second snake. And it was 5 feet and 2 inches long and had 12 rattles. And so that's what the 2 snakes were. We took them back to camp. And as soon as we hit the camp, there were about a dozen or so people there getting ready to work on the camp and go squirrel hunting. 10 minutes, everybody was packed up, and they had left the campsite.
We're done.
Out of the woods.
Yeah.
They were gone, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But that's what the 2 snakes were. And we took them home, or took them to his house, took pictures of them, and I think it was in the Vicksburg paper the next week.
Good gracious.
I mean, I'm looking at the picture now. Those are 2 big timber rattlers. What do they normally get to? Because those have got to be pushing the limits of.
I've never seen one that big ever.
I mean, it's long and fat. I mean, that's a big one.
The biggest rattlesnake I've ever seen a picture of came from the bombing range. My dad, and I don't think it was a timber rattler. I think it was something different. If there is a different rattlesnake in Louisiana, but it had both ends hanging off the bumper of a truck. And these right here are enough to. Good gracious.
You can't imagine. I could just almost get my fingers around the biggest part of the big snake. That's how thick they were.
God.
Or it was. Yeah. And when you pick them up, you think you just pick up a snake, and they were heavy things.
Yeah.
They're big snakes.
And that was in the Mississippi, near the Mississippi?
Yeah, the hunting club was between the levees of the Mississippi. Troy went over there. That's where we hunted.
Yeah, we went over there a few times.
Yeah, but Anderson Tilly Lumber Company owned about 300,000 acres up and down the Mississippi River. They were largest privately owned hardwood lumber company in the United States at one point. But they had a lot of land, a lot of timber, but it's a wilderness between the levees from the Mississippi to Louisiana side. And it's just nothing in there ever to disturb the wildlife except during hunting season.
Yeah.
And when they log it.
Yeah.
Lumber. But it's a wild place.
Yeah, it's hard to describe in people in Kansas the alertness that you have walking around in that part of the country to make sure that you don't step on something that's going to bite you.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
And that was my dad's leash when I was a kid. If I was just running around a little bit too much out in the woods, he'd say, "Hey, watch for snakes." And next thing you know, I'm right back next to him, walking with him, because they're like, "Oh, that's right. There's a lot of snakes around here. You don't know what you're going to come across."
Yeah. Yeah, I think that when we were hunting in Mississippi, that's the one time in my life I've seen that many deer in one spot at one time. Because I remember you and I went and sat behind a tree, and they were running dogs to push the deer one way, and you just sit there, and you were like, if you see one, big enough, you want to take him out, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just make sure we're shooting in the right angle and all that. Well, I was so shocked at how many deer were running through the woods at me.
Yeah.
Because we're sitting on the ground, and there were just all these deer just like I would, to this day, because I think I was like 12 years old or something when we went. Yeah. Pretty young. But I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I can't pick one out. There's too many. It was incredible.
It's hard to do when there's a huge group. That's what, even up there in Montana, that buddy Chase, that's what he talks about. He gives me such a hard time about it because, there's 200 of these elk. He's like, shoot. I'm like, which one? He's like, the big one. I'm like, where's he at?
They're all big.
We're in the middle of a blizzard. Come on, man.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know. I still think Chase knew what he was talking about. You just need to listen to him. Pull the trigger.
No, it's not just. It's a different animal.
Yeah.
Well, Dad, on this show, it's called Hardheaded, and our definition of hardheaded is being practical and realistic.
So Webster defines it as that as well.
Well, right.
Yeah.
We didn't come up with that definition.
Correct. Right. Well, sometimes it's not the number one.
Right.
You pull up.
It's our number one.
So but it is. Yeah, it's our number one.
It's in our top 3 of the definitions of hardheaded.
Yes.
It's our number one.
It's our number one. So, Dad, we wanted to ask you, what are you hardheaded about?
I don't know. I guess just the truth. Everything's got to be the truth. You don't stretch the truth. You tell the truth, of course, and never embellish the truth. The truth is what it is. There's nothing. You can't get around the fact that there's a fact that you look at and you understand what it is, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's it. And be very objective, very realistic. I'm not big on fantasy or anything like that. If it's realistic, it's factual, it's the truth. I guess that's what
you could deal with, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality that's there. And unfortunately, that's hard to do these days because there's very little of that floating around.
That's
yeah.
Right.
Well, it's hard to come by. Because you're always trying to find out what is the truth these days.
Yeah.
So
I had I don't know. We were talking actually. Greg Harrod, one of the guys that was on a guest on our podcast, who's recording one, Connect, Mobilize, Deliver. I was a guest on his, and we were talking about some of the work I'd done from a customer experience perspective. And I don't know why it came out, but it's pretty good. That trust is the greatest currency you have, and especially if you're a company dealing with a customer. That if you always tell the truth and you build that trust with your customer, then there's no stronger connection you can have with somebody,
right?
Because they know that what you're telling them is actually true, and that's what's going to happen. So if you could build that trust, you've got the strongest currency there is in dealing with other people. Is being truthful, being factual, sticking with the facts and not embellishing and just saying what it is.
I heard someone, when I was still in the oil and gas business, someone made a comment to someone else in another town in Texas. Said, I was looking at him investing in one of our prospects, and another fella asked him, can you trust Don Trussell, or is he a good person to invest with? He says, well, he may be too honest to be able to deal with him. So I made that a compliment, but it got back to me, someone would say that about me. And I don't know who it was to this day. It doesn't make any difference, but that I was too honest to deal with. So I don't know if that's an asset or a liability. But nowadays, it's got to be an asset.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I would definitely say, yeah.
And I would say, speaking of eternity, that would be a pretty good asset.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I've
go
got
ahead,
a question
Chet.
for you. So one of the things, and I'm kind of married into your family, and one of the things that my wife has made a priority in our lives as well is I think it's fantastic. But we kind of heard your work history. And she would describe you as somebody that was always working, like you always work. But she also said that you always made it a point to have a vacation. So we've gone to places with our kids, and the two that really come to mind. We take our kids to Breckenridge, and we have taken our kids to Disney. I hope to never have to go back. I think my kids will. I think she will. But that's something that you did as well. So somebody that's completely dedicated to work, but you also made it a point to take time out to do, spend time with family on vacation stuff. What drove that for you? Somebody that, that really, because I grew up in a family that my dad was just always working and didn't take time for that kind of thing. So, what clicked in your head to say, hey, I am going to take some time off, whether that's every year, every other year, and we're going to go do something as a family together.
Well, the good thing about kind of having your own business or working in the business where you were free to go and do what you needed to do, as long as you were making a profit or making money for the business. Mm-hmm. They were small businesses, small partnerships, but I could set up the times where I could go with the family, where there wasn't any school, or where several times our in-laws went with us a couple of times to Disneyland or Disney World. That was something that was easy to do, mm-hmm. because I didn't have a set time to go to work. I didn't have a set time to have to be there.
Yeah. Even
though I did when I got in the medical portion of it. I was pretty regimented as to when I had to be there and what I had to do.
Right.
And thankfully, the kids were gone. Of course, they were married. Y'all were married, or Ashley and Troy were married and had their own families, and we were pretty well settled in.
Yeah.
But being your own boss and be able to set up your times was a good thing.
Yeah.
That's how we did it.
Now, I've seen some 8mm film.
Oh, yeah.
From you operating an 8mm camera while skiing down the slopes. So I'm assuming you're a pretty good skier.
I don't know, I guess.
Because I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking you were filming. Well, it wasn't a small camera.
It wasn't a smartphone. It was a over-the-shoulder rig.
No, the 8mm was on a pole. That was a little.
It had a pistol grip.
Yeah.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. It had a pistol grip.
That was before VHS. We're going before your time.
No, but didn't you have a thing?
Super 8. It was Super 8.
Yeah, that was a Super 8.
Yeah.
And I had a microphone that would stick out. a telescope.
Yeah, that's what I remember. That seeing that big.
So is that how Troy got started in all this video business?
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I took a lot of film with that.
Yeah.
A lot of film. A lot of hunting trips with it too.
Yeah.
But that was a real good, I forgot where I got that thing. I don't know who got it for a present from someone. But it recorded a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff.
Well, we used to have movie night. You know, Ashley and I would pull out the big screen projector, and Dad would play those because they're like 30 to 60 seconds each or something.
I think there may have been 2 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
You know where that screen and projector is right now?
At your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got it.
Yeah. Because your kids pulled it out a few years ago, didn't
Ashley did, and it was a couple years ago, and we watched a whole box, full of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to do that for my kids soon.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Which was really neat because one of the resorts that you guys stayed in Breck happened to be right next door to the first time we took our kids to Breckenridge. Of course, we went in the summer, but it was right next door to Ashley's like, I think this is familiar, and sure enough, when we were watching those videos, we recognized the complex, the condo or whatever it is.
That's fun.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think we're about ready to hop into our top three.
Top three after we take this break.
From our sponsor,
Admiral's Pennant Beard Oil. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Admiral's Pennant Beard Oil, for being awesome and sponsoring this podcast. We also have the owner, Matt Amos, here with us. Matt, you've got a glorious beard. Can you tell us why you started making beard oil?
Oh, that's a long story.
Well,
But,
we've only got like 20 more seconds, so.
So when I retired from the Marine Corps, let me go real fast. When I retired from the Marine Corps, I started growing my beard, and
it didn't look great. It wasn't glorious. It wasn't awesome.
no, it itched and irritated the crap out of me, and so I began searching for products and found some out there, but they were a little bit too harsh on my skin, made me break out, turn
Probably
red.
because they use synthetics.
Yeah, a lot of synthetics, and then a lot of even if they used essential oils or whatever it was, they just put too much in there, and so created a blend and a brand that is not overpowering and gentle on the skin.
Yes. So you manly men out there that need to treat your beard gently.
Manly men with sensitive skin,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. You need to look at admiralspennant.com and get some wonderful beard oil so you can have a glorious beard like Matt Amos one day.
And you can get it all at www.admiralspennant.com. Now we're back.
And we're back. So we're going to go top three places we dream of hunting. And Mr. Don, I think the reason that Troy selected this top three is he may be getting one of these hunts for you for Christmas this year. So choose wisely. He's like, this is a good idea for get my dad something for Christmas. So Troy, if you're buying for me, the number 3 dream hunt of mine is an Alaska or Yukon moose hunt. And somebody at this table happened to have already done that. And he came back with the moose that's up there. But I think that would be a fantastic, a lot of it for just being in the wilderness of the Yukon or the eastern side of Alaska. I think that would be any part of Alaska. It'd just be really cool. And hearing your stories of just how awesome it was and seeing all the wildlife and wolves and crazy stuff.
Lots of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever told that story on here when I was hunting in the Yukon.
When that wolf came up on you?
Yeah.
I don't think you have either, but you've told me.
Yeah, I mean, we just sat down, and my guide we're just overlooking this marsh, and my guide was kind of down the cliff looking back around the river because it took a bend, and so he's out of sight, and I'm just sitting next to this tree. I mean, we literally had been there maybe 5 minutes, and there's just this little caribou trail that runs up and down this slope, and I just sitting there, and I just got this kind of eerie, weird feeling. And I look over my shoulder, and I mean, for me probably that rifle back there, about 6 to 8 feet, was a wolf, and those things are big when you're sitting down and looking up. I mean, huge. So I hadn't even put a round in my rifle yet, and so I'm keeping my eye on the wolf, and I'm putting a shell in the chamber. And as soon as I reach around, he was gone.
Because you had a tag. I mean, you could have.
Oh yeah, I had a tag for it. I had a tag for a bunch of stuff up there that I probably couldn't afford had I shot it. But
Yeah.
whatever.
But at that moment, you're thinking,
Send it
this
anyway.
is safety.
Yeah. I mean, wolves, they're pretty skittish,
Yeah.
animals. They don't like to confront people. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I could have been lunch if you hadn't been. You could have been hungry enough to want me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little snack.
Give them the legs first.
Yeah.
Break some teeth. We'll be all right.
If you're going to buy me here first, please. So anyway, number 3. Number 2, a duck hunt on Reelfoot Lake in northwestern Tennessee. And this one is, when I got into duck hunting, started reading some books, and you get into the Duck Hunter's Bible and all this other stuff. But some of the black and white photos of some of the what looks like some awesome duck hunts ever, mallards stacked on top of each other and these huge hunting clubs, and are most of those that I saw were all from Reelfoot Lake in Tennessee. And one of the things that I thought was fascinating, and I still want to do this, and it doesn't have to be there, but they had blinds that were like in trees that they cut off, like, I don't know, 20, 30 feet above the water. And then you'd crawl up in top of that tree, and you'd sit on top of the tree, and your decoys would be way down below you, so that a duck wouldn't even fully commit, and he's right there in your face, which I thought was pretty cool too. But anyway, that would be my number 2, and my number 3 would be a dove hunt in Cordoba, Argentina. And
I've heard about those.
Bring some money.
Yeah, because the shells.
Yep.
But I've heard several people talk about it that have been, and as far as wing shooting goes, that would just be a fantastic trip. I would thoroughly enjoy schwacking birds and helping out the farmers there, because the dove/pigeon population is so high that they ruin crops, and you shoot thousands of rounds stacking up birds.
Yeah. Had some friends that did that.
Yeah.
From Shreveport.
Yeah.
Went down there. I think 2,000 or 3,000 rounds is what they shot.
Yeah, and they're willing to sell you more. Like, a package will come with so many thousand, and then you can shoot as much as you want, but then you're paying for the shells as you go, and so they'll keep feeding you if you want to keep shooting them. But
Wow.
yeah. So anyway, that's my dream hunt. Number 1.
Very good.
Yeah. Matt, how about you, man?
Oh,
This is hard for you because you've had every dream hunt there already exists.
Right. He's been everywhere.
yeah. I've been a lot of places. Very fortunate to do that.
I've been everywhere, man.
Pretty well, not everywhere. It was tough for my number 3 because there's 2 different places. One would be the Hindu Kush in Pakistan. It's the mountain range that kind of goes into Afghanistan as well. I always thought it would be neat to go back to Afghanistan and smoke an ibex in the Hindu Kush, and then just be there as a hunter, be there as not a military guy, but just see it from a different point of view. I think would be cool, and that's kind of tied with Africa as well. Just because of the plains game, I don't have any interest in that. What do they call the deadly, the 5 deadly, whatever.
The big 5.
Yeah, the big 5, the most dangerous. I don't have any desire to go elephant or lion or Cape Buffalo or any of that stuff really. But I think it would be just some of the plains game, because the plains game that I've had as far as meals have been phenomenal. The food has been excellent. So I'd like to go get those, because that's kind of in that same line of that nilgai. So a lot of those antelope species over there are just phenomenal eating. And I mean, you can make a really good hunt and shoot a lot of animals and get a lot of meat and eat it while you're there. Obviously you can't take it with you, but the tribes take it, and they use, every part of the animal out there. So I think that would be fun. So those 2 are kind of tied. So there's my honorable.
Oh yeah, I got an honorable mention in
Honorable
there.
mention.
Squeeze one in.
Number 2 is a place that I've already hunted, but I would absolutely 100% go back. Would be the Yukon, but this time I would go after grizzly, and try to get a grizzly down. And the hunt that I had up there, I might have mentioned it before, but my first hunt, I passed on the first moose that I saw because it just wasn't. I figured this is a once in a lifetime trip. I'll never get to come back. I want a good moose. And this one was in the mid 40s. And I was like, nope. Well, I didn't see a moose the rest of that trip. So I basically sat in a boat floating up and down for 11 days, didn't see another moose. While my buddy went and shot a 36-inch moose, hunted over the carcass, shot a grizzly, hunted over that carcass, and got a wolf. So and then he spent the rest of the time fishing.
Yeah.
And which the fishing up there is phenomenal. But I would definitely go back and do that. It's you can't describe it, and you really can't capture it in pictures. It's just so massive, and you feel so small. And being completely off the grid, unattached to anything. I mean, there is no cell phone service. There's no electricity. I mean, you're there. And then you can really be a part of nature. And I think that's probably the coolest thing. And then number 1 was a trip that I was supposed to go on 2 years ago. And then I was supposed to go on it last year, and then COVID got in the way. And that's red stag in New Zealand. And I think while I'm there, I want to try to get, the rest of them, whether it's the ram that they've got there or the sheep. And I forget the name of the other stuff that they've got there, but you can shoot apparently as many wallabies as you want.
Well, I'll be darned.
Well, I'll be. But apparently they're a pretty big nuisance out there. And they don't know exactly if and when New Zealand's going to open back up its borders. And then when they do, it's going to be a required COVID vaccine, I think, at least to start. So I don't see myself going for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there are any native animals. I think most of those have actually been brought in. But what you hear is just, it's absolutely beautiful. The views are breathtaking, and the family that, if I get to go, that I will be going with, I mean, they're just super, super good people. Their son, is a guide. And I think he was 10 years old last time I saw him. And this kid can run up and down mountains. He's got more energy and endurance than anybody I've ever seen, and super respectful, responsible, just a really good, well-rounded kid. And so he was going to be my guide, and I was really looking forward to that. So hopefully they open it back up, and I'll get to go eventually. But that would be my number 1.
Awesome.
Very good.
Mr. Don, how about you? You had time to think about it?
Yeah, I thought about it a little bit, and I'd like to go to Alaska and go on a moose hunt. I'd like to do that.
I don't think you would ever come back from Alaska if you go up there. You've literally talked about going to Alaska my whole life.
Yeah, well, that would be my number 1, to go on a moose hunt in Alaska. Number 2 would be a pheasant hunt in South Dakota.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of birds.
I've never been on one of those. Had some friends that have gone on one, but that's something I'd really like to do. And number 3, I guess, would be probably another deer hunt over in Mississippi over there again.
Yeah.
But they sold their company in 2005, so I don't know what's become of it since then. But I'd like to go. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Doing the drive with the
Doing
dogs.
the drive.
Yeah.
You could drive with people.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, and lots going on, lots happening, good food, a lot of things going on. But that would be the.
So that was the true deer camp experience, right? 'Cause
yeah.
There's lots of people involved and bunks and
Yeah, there were separate cabins they had, and then they had the main camp house. I mean, it was huge. It was a great big thing.
Yeah.
And those guys could build stuff, of course, with hardwood lumber, and they could get all the lumber they needed and build a lot of things.
Right.
And to bring the generators in there. one day we were sitting on one of the porches, and some guy was coming in a pickup truck, and I asked him. I said, "I wonder where he's going." And the guy sitting next to him said, "He's going out." I said, "Out?" He said, "Yeah, we're in as far as you can go in. Wherever he goes, he's got to go back out." But this was on a huge lake. It used to be the river, Great
Old
big
Oxbow.
a huge lake, and it was really an experience. I really enjoyed it over there.
Yeah. I remember having to put the mosquito nets up around the bed when you go to sleep at night, and the whole deer camp experience.
Well, that's cool. All right, Troy, fire away, man.
All right, so number 3 for me would be Alaska moose. So that's all 3 of us, family here, and we have our guide that's been. So I think we need to plan a trip.
And you know, whenever one of us kills a moose, you could hunt for the grizzly.
I don't know much about the Alaska side, but I could probably get you around pretty well on the Yukon side of it.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know how much different that is. I know that it's 2 different moose.
Just
Supposedly.
at the border, they change.
Yep, that's exactly it. There's no Canadian moose on the Alaskan side. Those are Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey.
Hey.
They say A on one side and they say yeah on the other side. Is that how it is?
I don't know. I think they'd say ouch.
Hey, ouch. Okay, yeah, I gotcha. Number 2 would be Colorado elk. Would love to go shoot an elk in Colorado. Do some fishing while I'm there.
That's an easy enough one to attain right there.
That's right.
Over the counter.
These are not big,
No.
hairy, audacious dreams here.
He said kill an elk, not hunt an elk.
Hey,
I know a lot of people in Kansas that go hunt elk that don't kill elk.
you just got to be with the right people, I guess.
I guess. I
Or,
know a lot of
or
people.
have some pins on a map where you know kind of where to go.
Yeah. I still know a lot of people that have been a lot, and it just doesn't pan out like the week
Never.
or 2 weeks that they're there.
Never come back with any meat, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I shot one.
So it's pretty easy, apparently.
If I can do it.
Oh, man. All right, and my number 1 would be in the South Saskatchewan region for ducks.
Oh, okay. So the prairie pothole.
The Alberta province of Canada. Yeah. So here there's a ton of ducks up there. Would love to go shoot a bunch of them.
So the I actually hunted with a guy here in Kansas. We did a field goose hunt who goes up every year, and the ducks and geese. It's all, you know, I think early September, maybe late August when they go up there because of migration or whatever else. But I think it was September. But you know, we were talking about, oh my gosh, I can't believe that'd be so awesome. And then we got done with the field goose hunt here, and he's like, this is so much more fun. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, that's going up there in the potholes. And he's like, yeah, they are swarming around like mosquitoes and this, you know, but you're kind of just set up in a blind, and they come out in the water where your decoys are, and where we were set up in a field with the decoys all around us, and the geese were just in our face that day. And he's like, I've never experienced anything like that. You know, it was pretty funny, because I'm up here thinking the same thing. It'd be so much better to be up there hunting. And he's like, oh, I've done that, and this is cooler.
Grass is always greener.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, that flooded timber hunt we had in Louisiana was fun.
Yeah,
I'd love to go do that again.
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's some of that on real foot, depending on where you set up. Those cypress trees.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
I honestly can't believe that a Kansas deer hunt wasn't Troy's number 1, because
I've done that. These are dream hunts that you would like to attain.
I don't know that you've actually done a Kansas deer hunt.
I've done plenty.
He's not just on your place.
Yeah, I've killed other deer.
You have?
Yeah,
Were they all bigger?
they were. Yeah, it's easy. I can answer that question. Yes.
See, now he's talking about the herd of deer coming right at him. You know, if you'd have waited about 5 minutes, they'd have been there too.
Everybody's already heard this story.
I think the funniest thing about it is Troy's nickname is 3-Shot, but he only brings 2 arrows.
But I did shoot 3 times.
Because he had to go retrieve one and go shoot again.
They're going to be 3-Shot no matter what.
No matter what.
Even with 2 arrows. All right, we're going to move into the good word. I've got the good word for today. And it kind of ties into one of the questions I asked Mr. Don, but also this past weekend I had the opportunity to, we went over to Arkansas and hung out with Uncle Bob, my wife's uncle, and after we picked up the girls from camp. And I had intended on going trout fishing on Saturday morning. And I just happened to ask my oldest daughter, because I know my youngest daughter would absolutely say no, but say, hey, do you want to get up early and go with me? And she's like, oh, sure. And I'm like, no, I mean really early, because I wanted to be fishing at 6:30. And we were about, 40 miles away and got to get a tag to fish this place. And they only sell them the day of, all that kind of stuff. So she said, yeah, I'll do it anyway. So, my good word is around memorable family moments, like to be intentional to create those situations that I know my daughter's not going to forget trout fishing on this river with her dad. And I know I go back with my dad and think about all the crazy stuff that I don't remember how hard it was to get up early in the morning, but I remember a lot of those memories being outside hunting and fishing and doing stuff like that. But really to create those, and even if it's not the outdoorsy trout fishing type stuff, because this one we did, like, we're going to eat these, like we're going to come back, and came back, made this delicious sandwich. It was fantastic. I'm going to do that again. But even the Disney worlds and the ski trips, the summer vacations, and I know my sister's talking about grizzly bears. My sister and brother-in-law just took their whole family from North Carolina out to Montana, Wyoming, Idaho. And they were in one spot and noticed a grizzly, and they were like, "Oh, that's cool. Take pictures." And then turned around and there's a black bear right behind them. So they're like, "Oh, a black bear," But and they've had some difficulties, here recently with my brother-in-law and his health. But they said, they canceled last summer, just like we canceled our trip last summer. We had scheduled to take Ashley's dad to Alaska, but all that got shut down because of COVID. But they're like, we're going to go anyway. We're just going to find a way to make this happen and have a really good time and create those memories. So I think it's really important for us to not waste our time and follow through on those opportunities. Make the time to have those memories with your kids, with your family members. I think it's extremely valuable. And I'm sure you guys are probably thinking sometimes that you're like, oh yeah, well that was really, really special time. And I think we all have those, but now that we're the adults, we have to be the ones that arrange for that stuff to happen. And a lot of times you just kind of let that slip away. And I don't regret. I think we've done a lot in our family, but I know there are a lot of people in our scenario. We've got a son that's about to start his senior year of high school, and they're freaking out. Like, we haven't done this, and this, and now we've got a kid that's about to be out of their home, and now they feel like they're on this time crunch to fit all this stuff in. So don't do that. If your kids are younger, just start. Hey, put some on the calendar, even if it's a year or two out. Put some on the calendar and make that happen to create those memories, so that you don't let it slip away from you when you get there.
Good word.
I would agree.
What you got on the calendar, Matt?
I actually went outside of my comfort zone because my oldest, she's been hunting with me and all that, but she's kind of at that age where it just really doesn't interest her anymore. And skating is basically her whole life. And so
ice skating for those that don't know. Yeah.
And, or figure skating. Mm-hmm. And, so I saw something, cause she's into, anime and comics and that kind of thing. And so I saw where Kansas City was having a Comic-Con. And
yes,
I was like, I went and asked her because I saw who was coming. So the guy who plays John Kreese and the guy who plays Johnny are both going to be there from Cobra Kai.
William Zabka and
well, that's right up your alley, man.
So, well, that's when I saw that come across the board. I said, now I have a reason to go to Comic-Con. Yeah. And because I've watched those guys since I was born. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And then so we're trying to decide, because she's got a figure skating test that weekend. And so I don't know if we're going to be able to make it happen, but hopefully.
Matt, you're going to make it happen, and I will help you with your costume.
I don't need a costume.
Yeah, you do, man.
don't
You
need a
have to wear a
You
costume.
got to wear a costume at Comic Con.
Make it memorable. Like, that would be so memorable.
No,
Yes.
no, not doing a costume. However,
Remember when Dad wore that costume?
Even if it's a Cobra Kai gi with, sleeveless. Come on,
No,
man.
you need to
We
go.
can do this.
You need to go as the Karate Kid. That's what you need to do.
well, I mean, I've already got my Cobra Kai socks on
Yeah.
because that was my sock change for the year.
Yep.
But they had
For the year.
Time out for our listeners. Matt only changes his socks once a year, and it's a pretty big deal on which socks that he chooses because you wear them for a whole year.
Yeah.
And this year it's Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai.
they say no mercy on the top.
Nice.
But so when I was
Also for our listeners that may not know that Matt is a double amputee and doesn't have real feet that cause stink. We probably need to clarify that as well.
Just in case you came across this
Can you
podcast today.
believe that this guy doesn't change his
hey,
socks?
let them
Yeah.
find out. Let them find out. But when it came across because there was an ad on Facebook that came through, and it showed where you could buy a photo op with Crease and Johnny.
Yeah.
And so I think for the two of them, it was like $140.
Yep.
And I was like, I will pay that $140, and I want Crease choking me out. And then I'm going to turn my leg around backwards and have Johnny doing the elbow to the knee.
Yes.
Oh my.
So I don't need a costume for that because my
please.
daughter is never going to forget that.
Yeah.
Please make that happen.
So hopefully she decides that she wants to go, and because I know that skating, this is the only time that they can do this testing. Otherwise,
Right.
she has to wait 6 months, and that would really hurt her progression in the.
No, you guys, you'll make a way. You'll figure it out.
Well, hopefully we do.
You can do
Yeah.
just about anything.
But I agree, making those memories and doing that stuff with your kids, they'll remember that, not the pain of, oh, we had to stay up late and then drive,
Right.
all the way to go take this test or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it.
Good deal.
All right. Hey, I think we need some outro music. I would like to thank Mr. Don Trussell for being on the podcast with us.
Thank you for
Yes,
having
sir.
me.
It's been
Yeah,
a-
appreciate you being here. I wish we'd have got to talk more about Troy's.
No, we don't need to go into that.
well, we can maybe just after we turn everything off.
Perfect. We can ask those questions.
Yeah.
I'll get my answers.
Yeah, thanks
right.
for coming on the show, Dad.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to our Hardheaded podcast. Please like, subscribe, share, review, put some stars there. That does a lot to help us out. It's free for you, and it does a lot to help us. Thank you
a dime.
Thank you for our sponsor, Admiral's Pennant Beard Oil. Go to admiralspennant.com for all your beard oil needs. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Matt, you
job.
got anything else?
I'm out.
All right.
See you next time.
Yeah, you were holding us out to that beat drop.
I was.
Oh, that's it.